Everybody wants to know what works. Does keto work? Calorie counting work? Does Weight Watchers work? Does Noom work? Jenny Craig? But before we keep asking whether it works, maybe we need to ask a better question. What's your definition of something working? Because if it helps you lose weight and then makes you afraid to go to happy hour, terrified of birthday cake, obsessed with tracking, and then disconnected from your own body, is that health or is that just a socially acceptable form of punishment? We've been taught to confuse deprivation with discipline, restriction with wellness, and weight loss with worth. But anything that requires you to obsess, to track, to cut out major parts of life, to be perfect, to succeed, it was never designed to free you. It was designed to keep you trapped. So today, I'm not just talking about calorie counting. I'm talking about the mindset underneath it, the deprivation, the control, the cultural conditioning, and the lie that smaller automatically means healthier and that you just have to eat less and move more, because I am not here to teach you how to get better at dieting. I am here to help you debunk the dogma. Oh, the myth of calories. Calories in versus calories out. This is the conversation that I have with people so many times around the power of calories. And so I am real excited to dive into today's episode because it's not just about me wanting to share this information with you. It goes deep into my core around the PTSD I have with calorie counting. And so I can't wait to get into this episode. This is part of a series where I'm debunking all the diet dogma out there because it hit me recently. I've never done a series of podcasts on this before, but I had a client named Sue. And Sue is just such an amazing woman, 64 years old, and came to us kind of kicking and screaming. It's so interesting because her daughter called me and said, "Are you taking any more clients in your private practice?" And I said, "Well, why? Because we are not always taking clients." And she said, "It's my mom." And now she was a client of mine and still is. All of my clients are still clients of mine. But she learned how to, live the lifestyle that I teach, right? Really, truly being focused on blood sugar, her belief systems, behavioral science, all of that stuff. Okay. So it changed her life. And she was a trainer, actually, and didn't know this stuff. She had been trying to teach her mother who was an uncontrolled diabetic, her mother who was on 2 different insulins, metformin, had acid reflux, sleep apnea, and insomnia, high blood pressure, high cholesterol. You literally name it, she had it. And she was like, "My mother is dying and I need you to help her." So I'm like, let's get her on a call. This woman had a very big why. If you really think about it, staying alive for your family and for your grandkids and all of that. And she was on the brink. The medication was going to stop working sooner than later. And I know that this happens because we can manage it for so long with medication until the medication barely works anymore. And it breaks us from the inside. And so she got on a call and you would think she'd be like, "Yeah, all right, let's do this." She didn't want to do it. She did not want to work with us. And I never knew why. Her husband finally convinced her that, she didn't want to spend, she said she didn't want to spend the money on herself. And her husband finally convinced her, we need to do this. This is the priority in our family is you. I think she always took care of others and didn't really feel like she should be taken care of. But at the core, she just told me, and this is a year later, she said, "Do you want to know the real reason I didn't want to do this?" She said, "Because I have done all the diets and they're miserable and I didn't want to do it anymore. I would have rather just lived my life slowly declining and just enjoying food with my family, being able to go out anytime I wanted to, not think about it, use the medication and then just see what happens." And I thought, wow, it hit me because we believe that it's literally you have to wear the corset. The name of my book is From Corset to Crown. You either wear the corset, which is so tight, and after decades and decades of having to squeeze it and tighten it in order to be smaller or feel like you're doing the thing that your body needs you to do, she was just like, "The corset's off. I'm done." And that's what we think. We think when the corset comes off, then we're done and we do nothing. And I'd rather just be able to breathe without the corset and then see what happens. the reason why my book is From Corset to Crown is that we actually need to replace the corset with the crown that we were born with, the crown of worthiness that was always ours, the crown of knowing that we are here for a purpose. Sue is here for a purpose. And to think I'm just going to cut my life short because all I believe is that there is this corset that is keeping me from breathing and I don't want that anymore. She didn't even know that she had the crown. She forgot because the corset literally takes over our life. She believed that the only way for her to get healthy was to be miserable. And she wasn't willing to be miserable in order to get healthy. She was just like, I'm going to enjoy the time I have left. And we were like, Sue, like, that's not the way this has to be. This is why I call myself an untraditional nutritionist, because everybody out there that's working with people, and I don't say everybody because I'm going to get hate. And I get comments all the time about my philosophy because I am very untraditional. I go against what almost every certification out there teaches. It's why I have my own certification now around the BS that really matters, belief systems, behavioral science, and blood sugar, because they're all based on these dietary restrictions, these diets, the diet dogma. And it's not so much about the science of it. It's about the stuff behind it, the psychology of control and the brainwashing that goes along with wearing the corset. Every single one of these. So I've already talked about intermittent fasting. I've talked about keto. And today we're going to talk about calorie counting, because at the end of the day, it's the same wolf in different sheep's clothing. Now, the majority of certifications for nutritionists, and anytime you talk to a doctor, they're just like, eat less, move more. I see very influential social media accounts. I can think of one right now, 2.5 million followers. And he literally had a whole post about how all we have to do is literally, if you are not losing weight, you are not at a deficit enough, try reducing your calories by 500. And I wanted to tear my hair out. 2.5 million followers are listening to him tell women one more time, just eat less. Less is always better. Battle through your hunger. Tracking means you're disciplined. If you don't track your food, you must not want it bad enough. Weight loss equals health. That's the corset. And I am so tired of that being the story that we keep telling women. And this same influencer with 2.5 million followers also puts posts up about women's mindsets and loving themselves. And then the call to action is want to lose 40 pounds in the next 6 months. I'm like, the two don't exist together. And this is what we have to realize. We keep getting sucked into telling women what they want to hear. Lose weight fast, lose weight fast, lose weight fast. And then we try to tell them the other piece of what they want to hear, that you have value. You shouldn't be just tied to a scale. Here's the strategy I'm going to give you, and it's going to be tracking your food. It's going to be putting your body at a caloric deficit. We're going to use language that actually sounds very familiar to the diet world. And we can't have it both ways. This is why sometimes I get hate on my podcasts or on my social media, because the way that the majority of health pros like me have been trained, then falls short when I'm talking about my philosophy. Like, we want to tell women that they're valuable and that they shouldn't diet. Like, this one influencer actually talks about the dieting BS, but his entire approach is on calories. Like, you can't have it both ways. You can't tell women that dieting is BS, and then when they get behind the curtain, when they actually pay for your course, you're just going to teach them caloric deprivation. Calories are really, really close to my heart, because when my kids were 5 and 6 years old, they started talking about calories in food. And what's so crazy to me is every time I tell that story, people are appalled. They're like, what? Your kids started talking about calories? Yeah, they did. But wait a minute. If that's the thing that we literally are teaching women, why is it inappropriate for kids to be talking about calories? Like, if this is the right thing to do for our bodies, why are kids exempt from that? Oh, are kids exempt from that because it's a diet? Are kids exempt from that because they shouldn't have to track all their food? They shouldn't have to obsess over the energy in food? Yeah, they shouldn't. But then at what point in the process is it expected that as we move from child to adult, we are then expected to go with that protocol? And at what age is it appropriate to teach that to kids? So it's not 6. Everybody's super annoyed with me that my kids were talking about calories at 6. I didn't teach them calories, mind you. I thought I was keeping it a secret from them. But you can't teach what you don't believe. I believed in calories in versus calories out. I was miserable. I was deprived. I was stuck in diet dogma. I believed that my value was a number in the scale. I believed that my body was a human calculator. I spent more time tracking my food than I did actually loving myself. Every time I went back to counting calories, it was because I was so frustrated with myself. I was mad at my body and I thought I needed to punish it. The reason Sue didn't want to work with me is because she assumed that my approach would be like everything else she ever tried and it would be miserable. And she'd rather be happy and sick than miserable and maybe healthy because she had tried everything before and it didn't work. So at what age are we supposed to transition the child into adulthood by saying, here you are. Let's tighten that corset a little bit more. And now we're going to teach you about calories. I think about budgeting. I started teaching my kids about money when they were little. They would earn tickets for different things, right? So they would earn like for doing, there were certain things that were expected of them. And then there were certain things as they get older, they were above and beyond and they would earn tickets for. And then those tickets translated into, they had to give to God a certain percentage of their tickets and they could shop for a certain things and they had to save a certain amount of tickets. And then when we went shopping, I associated a ticket value to the different toys or different things that they wanted. And they'd go in their wallet and they'd take out their tickets and they'd pay the cashier with their tickets. And then I would go and put my card over. It's the same concept that they now practice with real money as adults. It's just a child version of it. What's the child version of counting calories? Like, honestly, it's our belief systems and mindsets about putting value on food. Food is good or bad. Don't have sugar. Don't have this. This is bad for you. The verbal affirmation we give when we say, oh, I shouldn't eat that. Oh, a moment on the hips, lifetime on the hips. Oh, I'm being bad right now. That's the child version of counting calories because that's what we end up teaching. Or we try to teach exactly the opposite of what we're doing, where it's like, honey, love yourself for who you are. Nobody should judge you for what you're wearing or what you look like. We don't believe that, right? When somebody speaks badly about your child, you're going to say to them all sorts of loving things that you would not say to yourself. When your child feels sad or stressed or acts out, you would say to them very different things than you would say to yourself. Like, it's just, we don't actually think through a lot of the times how the food noise and our philosophy around our bodies and our relationship with food translates to our children. For me, it translated into them talking about calories, even though I could have sworn on a Bible I never mentioned the word calories. This is my major problem with calorie counting, beyond the science behind it, because it gives us a scarcity mindset. It makes food more mentally powerful. It increases our cravings. And it's not just because of a lack of willpower. It's because of biology, because calories in versus calories out has nothing to do with blood sugar balance. And it's not something we can do forever. It's time consuming. It takes too much of a cognitive load. And it just promotes an all or nothing cycle. Here's my major problem with the word caloric deficit. And I need everybody to hear this. Deficit. What thrives in a deficit? Nothing. And so I am just putting an open letter to everybody that's out there, whether you are a mom or whether you are a health pro or a doctor. We need to stop calling it a caloric deficit. We have to. We can't keep saying eat less. Every woman I know just keeps trying to eat less and power through hunger like it's a badge of honor and feel guilty when they eat, because the word deficit tells our brain less, less, less. And if you are not successful, and success is basically if you don't weigh a number that you believe you should weigh, just keep eating less, just keep eating less. It's one of my biggest problems with the weight loss shots. We are not nourishing our body. We are just turning off hunger signals. That's like the glucose goddess. I saw a social media post for her and she said, developing a drug to quiet the food noise is like somebody being thirsty, and instead of giving them water, developing a drug to make you less thirsty. Now, I get every time I talk about weight loss drugs, I get all sorts of like comment and hate, but it's also because what you want to believe about it is not matching with what I'm saying. I would just ask you to be open to the concept of, would you let your kids do what you're doing? That to me is a number one litmus test. If you wouldn't let your kids do what you're doing, you shouldn't be doing it. And if you are letting your child do a weight loss shot without actually you actually talking to me first, then we're not doing anybody a service. I don't know how many years of women trying to counting calories and saying it doesn't work, and then other professionals saying, well, you're just not doing it right. It shouldn't be that hard. It shouldn't be that specific. It shouldn't be that much of an equation that if you're eating at what you believe is a caloric deficit, that it's got to be that perfect for it to quote unquote work. Okay. So the deficit mindset is one that just like it permeates in our brain, and we just believe I have to eat more, less and less and less. We just need to eat the right amount of food. Stop calling it a deficit. We just need to eat the right amount of food. And we can know what the right amount of food is by actually listening to our body. We should be ready to eat, satisfied, ready to eat, satisfied, never too hungry, never too full. Just that alone is a game changer. But if we just go by calories, 500 calories of an Oreo cookie is not the same as 500 calories of like chicken and avocado and quinoa. There's nourishment. It's not you are what you eat. All calories are is the amount of energy in food. It's what you absorb that matters. You could eat a boatload of broccoli and it be the same number of calories as a tiny burger, as like a slider. You can't eat a boatload of broccoli. Your body will shut off when it has the right nourishment. The cravings, the food noise, it all just dissipates when you're actually fueling your body correctly. Now, I had somebody comment that said like, just fueling your body correctly doesn't reverse everything. Of course not, but it's a foundation. We are getting to where we are when it comes to weight gain and health because of what we're putting in our body, as well as a variety of other factors and what we're not doing. Let's start with what we're putting in our body. But diet dogma tells us food is good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. And so if you eat something bad, you are bad. If you eat something unhealthy, you are unhealthy. And this is where it becomes tricky because we have to be able to balance both. And that's why my philosophy and what I teach my clients is not about food being good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. Food serves your body and food serves your soul, and we need both. We just need to serve our body more than we serve our soul. It's literally that simple. We cannot think that the number of calories in food is going to make us healthy. When you look at Weight Watchers, Noom, Jenny Craig, and any of these companies, they're all about calories. Noom can say that they do psychology too, but when you have to track your food and when you have to be perfect and when you have to be a human calculator, no psychology is going to undo the obsessiveness that causes. There is another way that you can do it, and I'm going to explain to you what's the alternative to counting calories. But I just need you to understand the formula, because this is, to me, it's like the Wizard of Oz. This is the problem. Calories in versus calories out. We think that the calories in food and then the calories that our watch tells us that we're burning when we're working out are the same things. They're not. Also, the exercise burn is only about 10% of what our entire burn is. We actually, our caloric burn rate has a lot to do with our age, our overall health, our gut health, a variety of factors that we kind of can't figure out. It's a little bit of the wild, wild west. We do have some formulas, and this is where I think nutritionists become really, like this is where people get you, right? Or people hire nutritionists because they feel like they can't figure out their caloric intake or what they should be eating or any of that. But at the end of the day, that is the simplest thing to be able to actually figure out. You could chat GPT it if you wanted to. What we really need to be doing is helping people to truly get a hold of their mindsets, their whys, and their consistency patterns after teaching them about what to eat. Now, I will say we are confused all day long about what to eat. And this is why the calorie argument drives me crazy, because we all default to that. We look on the back of the box. We're like, how many calories does this have? As if that is the litmus test. Calories matter. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they don't, but they take care of themselves. You don't actually have to think about it. I have no idea how many calories I eat, and my clients don't either. And in fact, when my clients who are so used to calorie counting eat PFC3, which is eating a protein, fat, and carb every 3 hours. That's all you have to do. You're eating to be satisfied. About a palm's worth of protein, about a fist's worth of carb, and trying to do less dense carbs if you can, and about a thumb's worth of fat. Eating every 3 hours from 1 hour of waking up. We see by continuous glucose monitors, when you do that, you're always ready to eat satisfied, and your glucose levels are right within your normal range. It's unbelievable the amount of balance that you have when you do that. So when you do that, the calories take care of themselves. But when people start counting calories with our approach, they'll often be like, wait, I'm eating too few calories. And I'm like, that's because we are in diet dogma. Diet dogma tells us this math equation when it comes to calories. Our body responds very differently when we're eating food that it loves, that it soaks in, that it absorbs. You can't eat the same amount of calories in broccoli as you can in a burger. So just think about it that way. We don't actually need to be thinking as much about calories as we do about listening to our body and balancing our blood sugar. When we're eating whole, clean, unprocessed food, when we're serving our body more than we're serving our soul, our body will just naturally tell us when we're hungry and when we're done. Now, when you serve your soul, that's going to go right out the window. But the longer you serve your body and balance your blood sugar, the more your body can handle those soul fill-in meals, and you don't have to stress. It's literal, incredible balance. But I want to tell you how people figure out formulas for calories. I have 5 different nutrition coaching certifications outside of the one that I actually developed. They're all calorie counting. Some of them don't even tell you how to calculate calories. You have to buy their calculator in order to calculate the calorie intake for your clients, which is crazy. And listen to this math. So if you are a woman, this is like a very common formula, common way that this equation is given. You take the number 10 and then times it by your weight in kilograms plus 6.25, and then times that by your height in centimeters minus 5, times it by your age minus 61. What? And then you multiply that by your activity level. If you're sedentary, you multiply it by 1.2. If you have light activity, it's 1.375, moderate activity, 1.55, very active, 1.725. This comes directly from one of my certifications. What? Like, what? And then once you have that number, right? If you want fat loss, if you're in fat loss mode, you then subtract 300 to 500 calories from that. If you are in maintenance mode, you're just going to stay around that number that you figured. And if you need to gain muscle, you're going to add about 200, 300 calories. Just add calories. It can be Oreo cookies. It can be chicken. Now, here's the other thing. I will see in my comments or in my messages, I am a nutritionist and I do calories, but I also talk about clean, whole, unprocessed foods. I'm like, yeah, but that's the subtitle. That's the subtitle. When the main title, the main event is calories, and then the subtitle is clean, whole, unprocessed food, a couple things happen. One, here's the formula. This is what perfection needs to look like. If you can't do this, it's your fault. And this is what diets do to women, to men, to all of us. They put us in this cage, this many calories. Bring your calculator with you wherever you go. And if you go to a restaurant, how do you figure that out? I guess you're just going to have to actually enter it all into your app so the algorithm can figure it out for you. or take a picture of it and let AI try to figure it out for you. And then you also have to make sure you eat clean, whole, unprocessed food. So if you're actually at a restaurant, you're not going to be able to be perfect. Well, it wasn't the diet's fault. It was yours. It puts us in a cage and then blames us for not flying when the plan itself is absolutely not at all doable. It's not doable. Nobody's life can fit into a meal plan that someone creates for you, like it's a script, and then give you no tools for being able to actually have a life. What happens when your car breaks down and you're stuck and you need to, fend for yourself? You need to go to a convenience store to grab something to eat, and all you're doing is looking at calories, or all you're doing is you're super stressed out and you know you can't eat on plan, so you're just like, screw it, that's it, I'm done. When a plan does not allow for life, it does not allow for success. And calories in versus calories out is such an antiquated method that every single woman on the planet has already tried. So we have to stop putting new clothing on this wolf. It's the same wolf. It's the same level of tracking and obsessing. I don't care if you call it a lifestyle. I don't care if you are social media and you are just saying that you believe that women's values are not in a scale, and then you advertise lose 40 pounds in 6 months. No, we can't have it both ways. We have to stop. We have to take off this corset once and for all. Because people like Sue, who have already tried calorie counting, and maybe she didn't do it perfectly. Maybe the thousands of women that I've worked with over the years, they just didn't do it perfectly. And that's why they weren't successful counting calories. Okay. Well, if nobody can do it perfectly, then nobody can do it. And if nobody can do it, is it something we should be teaching? And if it's not something we would allow our kids to do, and there's not even a version of it, like my finance version of tickets versus money, there's not even a version of it that's kid friendly, what are we doing? What are we doing? That's why it's probably a good time to be able to tell you that when we talk to women before they start working with us, we always say, it's not your fault. You should have been taught this stuff when you were a kid. And then one of my team members said, why aren't we teaching this to kids? And I'm like, it's a good point. So that's why we have developed the PFC Pals. We are so excited. The PFC Pals is a nutritional literacy program that starts with the very first book. There will be a series of books, but the first book is called The PFC Pals and the Really Big Superfood Secret. And the PFC Pals, protein, fat, and carb, jump into this little boy named Mark's life and teach him about the power of protein, fats, and carbohydrates. But he has a secret, a very exciting secret to be able to tell Mark. And these pals, they are teaching, without him even knowing it, the power of blood sugar stabilization. It's a secret that most adults don't know. And it's a secret that we can absolutely teach to kids in a way that empowers them, doesn't shame them if they make a choice that doesn't align with what we're fully supporting. They get to make choices and know that food is fuel, and how they feel and how their body reacts is related to what they're putting in their bodies. And it's really exciting. So yeah, we need to be able to, if your diet that you're doing, if calorie counting cannot be made to be kid friendly, we can't do it. Calories in versus calories out is so antiquated. It absolutely not only is impossible to do, it's math that feels just unobtainable on a regular basis. And it continues to perseverate the concept of weight loss versus health. And that this is about obsession and tracking, even if you say it's not. It is. And there's no way you can do calorie counting really, truly successfully without obsessing and without needing to be perfect on both the title and the subtitle, the number of calories, and eating clean, whole, unprocessed food all the time. The minute you don't do that, it's not going to quote unquote work for you anymore. Nothing in that equation has anything to do with blood sugar stabilization, yet that is the core foundation of our body. I get myself on this tangent about it because I see what's possible. I see what can be done when we actually throw out all the diet dogma. It's like we almost have to be like, everything we've been taught, let's throw out and let's renew and refresh with what we know our body needs in a way that is simple, sustainable, and satisfying. We would teach our kids we could do it forever and gets better over time. So that's the call to action. And I love that throughout this podcast, I can show you and teach you these components of what we need to do, but I can't do it like in one moment, in one episode. It's why be on the lookout for a 3-day challenge. I do those a few times a year to be able to dig into this stuff. Make sure that you subscribe to this podcast so that you can get little bits and pieces every time. And every day, Monday through Friday, I have my morning time live show, 8 a.m. I go live on Instagram where I can dig into these pieces, little bits over time. So the goal for today is for you never to want to count another calorie again, and to know that we are not going to do that to our family, to our bodies, to our kids, to our minds, and to our lives. We were put on this earth for a purpose, one uniquely curated just for us, each one of us individually. In order to serve that purpose, we have to be the healthiest version of ourselves. And being the healthiest version of ourselves means really taking a look at who we are, what we want, what the healthiest version does and says and thinks and believes for the right reasons. So wherever you're on your journey, there's a place for you here. Tune in and we'll continue to disrupt everything you've been told about weight loss, confidence, and self-worth. Let's go.